A car bomb blast has killed at least 8 people and injured more than 70 in Beirut. We'll be live in Lebanon. The explosion happened in Sassin Square. That's a busy part of the mainly Christian district of Ashrafia. Also today, you're talking about online bullying following the suicide of the Canadian teenager Amanda Todd. Can anything be done to break the cycle of cyberbullying? Has the internet somehow made teenagers more cruel? You can get in touch using Facebook, Twitter, the phone and Skype, among other things. Contact details on the screen throughout the programme. Okay, let's get you right up to date on what's going on in Beirut. At least 8 people killed, more than 70 injured after some sort of device went off in that central square in the predominantly Christian area. Patrick Gailey is a freelance journalist in Beirut, and Habib Bata is a blogger at beirutreport.com. They join us now on webcam. Patrick, first, what are you hearing? What are you seeing?
Hi there. Well, the latest, as you've said, we're hearing 8 are killed, more than 70, could be as many as 100 injured. It's very hard to tell, obviously, because lots of bodies have been taken to hospitals nearby. So it seems like, unfortunately, that death and wounded count will definitely go up. It's not been confirmed 100% officially by ministers, but it does seem that there was a car bomb, or at least a roadside bomb. Certainly at the scene, you can see a bomb, a car rather, that is literally split in two. This was a massive explosion. It sent debris hundreds of meters away, and a very, very serious blast with lots of damage,
And it seems to have been a small, sophisticated, but very powerful device as well.
This is what, you know, available evidence points to. There are investigators on the scene now, so we will eventually have confirmation of that. But it does seem that Sassin Square in particular is a very crowded, busy, very, very difficult, you would think, place to get a large bomb, a bomb of such force into that size. So I've heard reports of 30 kilograms only of TNT, but you can see from the crater and the blast site that the damage is monstrous, really.
If you're there, please do get in touch. Of course, give us a call or indeed Skype us, and we will call you right back. We're talking to Patrick. We're also going to talk to Habib. Habib, why this particular area? Why do you think this area would be targeted? I think we've lost Habib. We'll go on chatting with Patrick. Patrick, same question to you. Why this particular area? Because it's known as being a Christian area, but at this time on a Friday, it's busy with shoppers, it's busy with people watching as well.
That's exactly right. It is a predominantly Christian area in eastern Beirut. The time of the blast was just before 3 p.m. local time, so it wasn't rush hour, but children were coming back from school. And it was clearly a very busy time. There's cafes all around, there's residential buildings. This bomb was clearly, whoever set it, was designed to inflict maximum civilian damage. Now, we've had the national news agency out and say that there was no political, individual targeted attack. That's not stopped people speculating. There's a big office of a political bloc in Sassin Square, about 100 meters away from the blast site, and people are obviously linking it to that, and also to the conflict in Syria, which Lebanon is struggling to keep away from.
Habib Bata is with us. He's a blogger at beirutreport.com. Habib, what are you saying about this on your blog?
Well, I think what I'm worried about is that we'll never find out really what happened today and who was behind it, because it fits a pattern that we've been living through for several years in Lebanon, which is that there are investigations, there are crime scene investigators, there are bomb dogs, there are men in plastic suits and taking photographs, but then years later, we never find out who is behind assassinations and bomb blasts in Beirut. And we have had literally dozens and dozens of bombs since 2005 in Lebanon, and almost no hard evidence, no even a sketch of a victim, no CCTV footage that's compelling, nothing to really let us get some closure on these events.
Okay, given that, just interrupt you for a
it.
second, given that the mosaic of the region is changing almost by the week right now, if somebody wanted to do this, who do you think would be the most likely person to do this?
You know, Lebanon is a country that is full of people that have bomb-making abilities, full of people that have ability to mobilize cells of groups, armed groups with violence as their philosophy. Lebanon is just full of that. To speculate on that would be almost nonsense, because there are so many theories on who does these bombings in Lebanon. And that's why it's such a problem that we don't have real transparent investigations that go nowhere. So there are political forces that even stop investigations from happening in the first place.
Jeppe Nybro joins us on the line from Beirut. He's a Danish journalist. He was pretty close to the explosion when it happened. He's on webcam. Jeppe, just take us through your experience of this.
Well, I was sitting at this cafe at the Sassin Square when the bomb went off, or the explosion. We don't know for sure. I should stress that. We don't know for sure now yet if it was actually a car bomb, but a huge explosion came, and it was like a big, first you felt like a big blast, like the wind of the explosion, and then all the debris were like hammering through the windows of the Starbucks. I was sitting just next to a window, and the handle of the door just flew out from the door. I ran out to Sassin Square and ran towards the bomb site, and the situation there was pretty scary. I must say, I was covering from Copenhagen the events during 9/11, and it had some kind of feeling, a touch of 9/11. You know, the sky was completely black, the sun was almost covered with smoke, and people were running towards me screaming. As I approached the bomb site, there was a car, apparently the car that blew up with explosive or something that blew it up, and it was all flames. And towards me ran people covered with blood on the street, a lot of glass, obviously, from the building surrounding. It's a quite peaceful residential area, so it's like normal people living here. And, you know, on the street, at the glass, there are pieces of human flesh, and there are school children running, I would say running for their life. At least they're very, very scared. So quite a shocking experience for residents here in Sassin, and certainly for Beirut, that has been worried that maybe some big would happen, maybe in connection with the crisis in Syria. We don't know yet if there is a connection, but certainly a lot of concerns at Sassin Square here tonight.
If you're in Beirut, please do call us on Skype. We'll put you on the air because we're still putting this together. We're still working out exactly what happened, 2 hours ago now in the Lebanese capital. We're talking to Jeppe Nybro. He's a Danish reporter in Beirut. Jeppe, was it one of those situations where you don't need the confirmation from the authorities, you just know that it's a bomb blast? It's just got that feel to it.
I would say it had that feel. I've been covering the war in Iraq for many years. I've been in Gaza, in Haiti, in all the war zones, and the blast was so immense. I mean, I've been near to cars blowing up just for electrical defaults or whatever. The blast was so immense that the amount of debris, obviously you can't see here on the webcam, but just behind me, all over the scene where there's glass scattered all over, and this is like 80 meters from the very bomb site. The buildings that you see behind me, a lot of the windows there are blown out. So if it was just a car that had some kind of default and blew up, I don't think it would have that enormous impact. I mean, there are so many buildings around here where the windows are crashed, shops where the doors are blown in. So I think you could say for sure that it was some kind of bomb.
Okay, just looking at the pictures in the immediate aftermath of this device having gone off, it looked a bit surprising in one regard. The police, the security services, they had not either cordoned off the area, they hadn't sealed the area off, and people were still milling around as if, understandably, they were looking for relatives or loved ones. But in that situation, surely they should clear the area completely.
I would say that the bomb scene has been one big mess ever since whenever it was exploded. I was there like maybe 45, 60 seconds on the bomb site ever since, and there are people all over the place. There are here. They're Lebanese army. They're security, but people tend to go beyond, the things that they try to put on the streets with. And people are sitting here at the cafes, sipping cafe latte, eating brownies, talking about what's happening. And there's still parents walking around the square with their school children on the way home, on the way to buy groceries or whatever. So I think you could say, as one of the other blokes said just before, that Beirut is pretty much used to a very dramatic everyday life, but today, for sure, it's a very, very dramatic period in this area, especially, as I said before, because it's known to be a very peaceful residential area. There's even a monastery 200 meters behind me. There are a lot of coffee shops, a lot of shops, a lot of restaurants, cafes, and so on. So it's a very, very peaceful area, and as I also said, a lot of school children. On my way, when I was running towards the bomb, there was actually a school bus that was sort of stranded in the middle of the square. Yeah. So getting back to your question, was the police, the security forces, were they good at closing off the streets, at securing the bomb site? It's hard for me to judge. I'm not an expert as such.
Jeppe, I'm going to interrupt you there because the quality of the line to you is not as good perhaps as it might be. Jeppe obviously talking to us there, I suspect, on Skype on his smartphone. We'll talk to Habib one more time. Habib, you were nodding there in resonance of some of the comments that Jeppe was giving us. What's your feeling having heard that very full-on description of what happened?
I mean, it feels like deja vu because we've been through so many of these bomb scenes with the glass shattered all over the place, ripped up cars, blown up, torched cars. And it's a panic scene because when it happened today, telephones don't work. The cell phones in Beirut often go out during these periods. Everybody's on the phone trying to call a relative. So it's a very kind of unnerving feeling to be able to keep trying on the cell phone and you can't reach anyone because the system is overcapacitated with phone calls. And so we knew from the past that when your phone doesn't work, there has been a bomb in Beirut. And so it really takes us all back to those bad days of 2005, 2006, 2007, when we saw a string of bomb blasts actually in some of these Christian neighborhoods, very much targeted at Christian neighborhoods during that period, despite the fact that the prime minister was assassinated. He was actually a Sunni Muslim. But there was kind of an agenda behind these bombings, which is to kind of stir sectarian tensions in Lebanon. And so we had a very fearful period during that time. And it reminded me today, walking down the street, seeing television sets on in shops and people just walking into shops just to watch television and the pictures of, blackened cars on TV. So it really takes us back to that period. What I will say, though, is what's more worrying about all of this is that during that time when we had bombs in 2005, 2006, most of these bomb blasts took place at night. And people kind of, wrote it off as it happens only once in a while to some people at night. But now having this during the daytime is a bit frightening, although it was on a side street, not on the main thoroughfare.
Okay, guys, we'll have to leave it there for the moment, but thank you very much for joining us here on World Have Your Say. Do stay with us here on BBC World News. You're watching World Have Your Say from BBC World News with me, Peter Dobby. We're tracking this story for you out of Beirut. At least 8 people have been killed, more than 70 have been injured as that car bomb went off in that central Christian area of the Lebanese capital. Karim joins us on the line from Beirut. Karim, what did you hear? What did you see? What was your experience of this?
Hi, well, just to let you know, it was total panic. Everybody around us, I did not hear it per se, but you could see from people's reactions when they're watching the news that there was a lot of panic. We started gathering information that there was a bomb, tried to contact family and friends, but unfortunately the lines could not get through. So as you can imagine, this is the artery of Beirut, Ashrafieh district. Lots of people crossed through that road, so there was lots of panic and scare that is one of our family members, at risk. We're trying to contact them. So, straight away, there was just try to get in contact with the family, make sure everyone is safe. We did hear, though, and it's quite obvious that this is a residential district. People are saying, is this actually a political statement? What's scary, though, is this isn't. According to lots of people around us, this is purely a mass killing. And it is very scary that is this beginning of a new cycle of violence, which we thought was the end. This is basically what we're feeling at the moment, and you could feel from the streets of Beirut that there is paranoia, there is, scare. People are they're scared. People are scared. What is going to happen next?
The Beirut Marathon, the Beirut Peace Marathon, is what, 2.5, 3 weeks away. It's due to be tens of thousands of people running the streets of Beirut in the wider quest for peace. Should they go ahead and stage that event?
Ideally, we would want everyone to go ahead and continue with their lives, but the reality is now that this bombing has happened, we don't know. I do hope and pray that this will go ahead because it will show a sign of solidarity and commitment from the Lebanese people to move on. As you know, in the war in 2006, the Lebanese themselves really fought to live their life. We've gone through lots and lots of conflicts. Hence, I do know that we're a resilient people, and we will do this. We will, surpass this violence. We will continue to live our lives peacefully. And I do hope that the organizers will continue with this event just because of it being a statement that we won't stand down to this violence, to this fear, and that we will continue our lives.
Do you think, Karim, that the authorities there, they seem well used to dealing with this kind of thing? Not least, you've touched on it, various of our contributors have touched on it as well. What happened in the events following 2005, 2006?
So, unfortunately, this is not a new phenomena to us. Our authorities do not cordon off the area. As you can see now, people, the security apparatus have shut down the area. What really worries us is not shutting down the area, but who actually did this. Unfortunately, we're not able to find out who are the culprits, who has actually done these terrible terrorist acts. And we hope that this time around, our government, our authorities will come to the bottom of this and stop this cycle of violence that keeps coming year after year.
Okay, Shabir emailed us to say, whoever is behind this blast, I am 100% sure that America and the Western world will prove that this blast was conducted by Syria. Benjamin in Nigeria posts on Facebook to say extremists will always use any situation to advance their cause. Joseph in Germany on Facebook as well. Quite ironic that Syria has condemned the explosion that's killed 8 people. This could be an act of provocation to bring in other players to the Syrian war. Scott Webber tweets this: the car bomb in Beirut. The Syrian conflict is not spreading to Lebanon. It was there under the surface, waiting for a trigger. We're talking to Jeppe, Patrick and Karim. Patrick, do you think it's there under the surface, waiting to be triggered?
I think it's been there for a while, really, in Lebanon. Lebanon is a small country geographically, and it's linked with Syria through historical, political, social ties, has been for decades. I think what worries people now after this blast is that it's been difficult in Lebanon, try as the government might, try as people might, to stay outside of the Syrian conflict. It might not be necessarily directly involved, but you're asked about it all the time. People say, whose side are you on? Are you for or against Bashar al-Assad? Now, as long as you didn't take a position necessarily, people here just going about their daily lives saying, I'm not interested in politics. I know I'm Lebanese, but I am not for or against the regime in Syria. Then you'd stay out of it, you'd be okay. You wouldn't be targeted necessarily by the militias that have been clashing in Tripoli and in Beirut earlier on in the year. Now, that might not matter anymore. Normal Lebanese people were injured in this attack. They are not militias, they are not partisans necessarily of any party supporting or defaming Bashar al-Assad. They were simply caught in the crossfire, and this is causing, obviously, understandably, many people to seriously worry.
Okay, Jeppe, wrapping this up in as many allegedlys as we can muster, if this is the work of Syria, and I stress the word if this is the work of Syria, what's the game that they are trying to play here?
Maybe, just to start things up, obviously the Lebanese regime, the Lebanese government, has been supporting Assad for many years. But within the recent time, recent months and weeks, there's been a little bit more skepticism from the Lebanese government. And you could worry that what's going on now is trying to ignite some of the many security lines that you do see in Lebanon and have seen for decades, especially obviously during the civil war in Lebanon. And you do already have a lot of tension between the Alawite minority in Lebanon and the Sunni majority. Just a few days ago, I was in Tripoli, which is one of the most tense cities in Lebanon, and there was really a tense atmosphere between Alawites and Sunnis, and a lot of people raising concerns if the war is now going to into Lebanon. And that's what everybody I've been talking to here in these past hours are talking about, that they are fearing that this could be the
Jeppe, I'm going to have to stop you again there, for which I apologize. Jeppe talking to us on Skype via his smartphone. Problems with the communications there to central Beirut. He's quite close to where that device went off, what, almost 2 hours, 45 minutes ago now. Obviously, people in that area, they're all online, they're all Skyping, they're all tweeting, they're all trying to call each other to find out if everyone's okay. Let's go back to Karim. Karim, an awful lot of our Facebookers and tweeters seem to believe this might have Syrian involvement or Syria writ through it. Do you buy that?
That's a typical response of all people now. Given the conflict in Syria, that is, logically what people will say. I personally will wait for the investigation to come about. My heart says, yes, there could be regional involvement, there could be Syrian involvement. We don't know, and I don't want to speculate here. But from a cycle of violence, I'm not surprised.
The cycle of violence, which cycle of violence? I mean, this sounds very naive and crass. Which cycle of violence are you talking about?
Well, you see, we're Lebanese people. We've lived this. We've lived, unfortunately, bombs and killings. And this is not something we're proud of, but it's a reality. Back in, when the Hariri assassination happened, then with the following political assassination of anti-Syrian figures, even with the July 2006 Hezbollah-Israeli conflict, there was violence. So this is what I meant by cycle of violence. Now, there are many players that people, depending on your political affiliation, you would say this is the person who did this. But yes, I'm not surprised, given the regional instability and the country, what's happening in the conflict in Syria. This is a very logical, conclusion.
Is part of the problem here, Karim, that what goes on in Lebanon is hardwired almost to a lot of other stuff that goes on in the region, and the outside world maybe doesn't get that, it maybe doesn't understand that?
Yes, we say that Lebanon is a battlefield for the regional and the world players. This is what all Lebanese feel and believe. So I do think that this is, what happens in Lebanon has a ripple effect on the region. And this time around, we're actually the receiving end of what's happening outside of our borders. We felt last year was prosperous for us, even though, our neighbors, Syria, was undergoing very bloody conflict.
Karim, I'm going to interrupt you, but ask all our contributors to stay with us here on World Have Your Say. Welcome back to World Have Your Say from BBC World News. We're tracking what's going on in Beirut for you. We have at least 8 people dead, more than 70 injured after that bomb blast 2.5 hours ago in the Lebanese capital. Reaction both on Facebook and Twitter, and also various people wanting to go on air. They're calling us here at World Have Your Say. Do stay with us for the very latest on that story. Also today, what you're talking about big online is cyberbullying following the death of the young Canadian girl Amanda Todd. Now, she voluntarily, depending upon what you think about what she did, or she was coerced into, in effect, sending a topless picture of herself to somebody else. He then put it on the internet. That then led to her being bullied a lot. She gave up the fight by taking her own life. We'll be talking to some of you about that in a moment here on World Have Your Say from BBC World News. You're watching World Have Your Say, coming to you from BBC World Service with me, Peter Dobby. Going to kick off this half hour of our live debate talking about Amanda Todd, the Canadian girl who took her own life last year. Let's talk to Bailey first. Bailey, just explain to me what your story is.
Well, there was this girl that I knew. We were really close friends. And she had a Facebook account that got hacked. She wasn't sure who it was, but she knew it was someone from her school. They were calling her bad names and were making her feel so horrible about herself. Eventually, she found out who the hacker was. It was a girl from her school. She got suspended from school, and my friend eventually moved away out of the district. So far, I haven't seen her in such a long time. So now she just looks over her shoulder, wondering, will that ever happen to me again?
Okay, and are we saying she moved because of the bullying? I mean, this wasn't just a coincidence.
No, she moved because of the bullying.
Okay. Did she talk to you about the bullying at the time? Did she tell you how it began?
Well, I was the only one that knew when it was happening. She was telling me about what they were posting on her wall and what they were saying, and she was just so afraid. She didn't know who to go to. She didn't want to go to the police. I was the only one that knew.
Did she talk to her mum and dad about this?
They found out eventually. I was the first to know a little while after they found out, but they didn't want to make a big deal about it, neither did she, so they did not go to the police.
Okay. At the point in the relationship between your friend and the person who was doing the bullying, was there a tipping point? Was there one day, 1 hour, one comment someplace on the web when you thought or your friend thought, this is potentially really bad?
Well, they were calling her very, very bad names on her wall, and she would go weeks without going to school. She was so embarrassed, so afraid, she just didn't want to leave her house. Okay.
Was there anything about your friend's personality that made her particularly sensitive to this kind of thing? Because if you were, say, being bullied during break at school, you either stand up to the bully or you walk away, which is perfectly fine if you're in a dangerous situation, or you go and tell a teacher. So I'm trying to get to the idea of why did this get to her in the way that it did? Because if you're not going to school for weeks at a time, you know, people might say, well, where were her parents during all this? Where was everyone else in her family? What were they doing?
Well, she's the type of person that doesn't get upset over things. She doesn't like to show her emotions, but this happened so hard, so full force that she just didn't want to go. And her parents understood. She kept doing her homework, she didn't go. And it got so severe that the school stopped all internet access from the electronics at the school and that the children would bring.
Okay, do stay with us. Scott and Tina are two guests. We'll be talking to them in just a second. Scott and Tina, I want you both to listen to this if you can. Sarah is not her real name. She's been a victim of cyberbullying for a long, long time. She didn't want to talk to us live today or share her real name, but she did send us this video talking about her experience.
The opportunity to attack somebody that you don't know seems to fill some people. The opportunity to attack somebody that you don't know seems to fill some people with glee. After all, you know, it's a bit of a laugh, isn't it? It's not real. That person at the other end, I don't know them. They're just a name that appears on my computer screen. Therefore, there's no effect. Well, there is an effect. Because the words appear on my computer screen, they hurt me, they hurt my family, they hurt my friends. You pushed me so far that I didn't know where to turn. And then later, when you added to that, and you called me the most disgusting, vile names, and you told the most awful lies about me. And you encouraged other people to do the same, to the point where you were encouraging people to physically hurt me. Go on, go down, give her a slap. Show her who's boss. Give her karma in the form of a punch.
Tina Meyer is running the Megan Meyer Foundation. Her daughter Megan committed suicide as a result of cyberbullying. She now runs that foundation to prevent bullying and cyberbullying. She joins us live from Missouri in the United States. Also, Scott Freeman is the founder of cybersmile.org. He joins us live from the city of Brighton here in the UK. Tina Meyer first. Bullying is bullying, but cyberbullying has an added dimension. What is that added dimension?
It's absolutely added. The difference is that when we say something to somebody that is hurtful or negative face to face, we have a few people that are around. And when you don't have any electronic technology, you can walk away, you can go home, you can get away from it. But the problem is now is that things that kids say face to face, they say those things, but now everything is transferred. The way they communicate is through their cell phones, through social media. So now it not only just goes to a few people, now it gets sent, whether it's videos, whether it's everybody tagging on and talking about it, now it spreads to mass numbers. Now when the children go home, the children don't put their cell phones away. Many times kids sleep with their cell phones within arm's reach at night. So now when they are getting texts through the nights, comments through the nights, postings through the night, and it is 24 hours a day, many times they feel so isolated. And we're talking about kids that some days they have coping skills that they can deal with things, and some days they don't. But cyberbullying adds a complete different dimension because there's not an escape. That means for children to think to take their cell phones and put all their social media away, they feel there's no existence for them. So what they will do is continue to keep trying to delete it, ignore it, and keep going on, but simply it is 24 hours a day for them.
Okay, Maria, in Canada, you've been cyberbullied as well. What was your experience?
A lot of the bullying was in person at school or on the bus. I don't remember a time when I wasn't bullied. I ended up dropping out of school in the 9th grade when I was 16, and I had a lot of people tell me that I need to go back, I need to do this, and I need to do that. But at the same time, I was fighting probably the worst depression of my life. I struggled with an eating disorder and self-harm and attempting suicide many times, thankfully unsuccessfully.
Marina, just to interrupt you for a second, you're going to a vigil a little later today for Amanda Todd. What do you want that vigil to achieve?
I would love for it to bring awareness to what's really going on. A lot of kids don't talk about what's going on, and it's really horrible because it goes completely unnoticed. And then something like this, something like there was a girl a while ago, Jenna Bowers, who was harassed online so badly that she ended up taking her life, as well as another young girl I went to school with, Holly Knockwood, who ended up taking her life earlier this year. And hearing about Amanda just recently really hits home. I know her aunt from a few years ago, working with her, and I'm just really hoping that there's going to be more awareness about cyberbullying and more understanding of what kids are going through. These are not our parents, our grandparents' bullies. These are our bullies. They tell us to walk away and tell someone we trust, but when we tell someone, from my experience, when we tell someone, it seems they don't quite understand or don't believe us, and they tell us to walk away, tell somebody, and we do. But then
okay. Marina, you've raised so many points, as did Tina. I just want to distill some of those down and put them to Scott Freeman, founder of cybersmile.org. He's in the city of Brighton on the south coast of England. Scott, I mean, what's wrong with the off button on the smartphone or the iPad or the computer? What's wrong with delete your Facebook account, don't go on Twitter? What's wrong with saying to your mum and dad, I'm being bullied, help me?
It's unrealistic. people can't, children now, they can't function without this social media. It's exactly that. It's social, it's an integral part of their lives. When you block people, you still receive messages. You can still get private messages from profiles when people aren't your friends. So you cannot, you still read the message and then you can go over it and over it and over it. When people say something in real life, it passes, but with this you can use it, people tend to use it as a tool to hurt themselves, if that makes sense to you.
Yes, it does. Let's put that back to Tina Meyer, who's in Missouri in the United States. Tina, if there is to be a solution to this, where's it to come from?
You know, we're dealing with human beings, so we're always going to have human beings who sometimes have different behaviors. So we're never ever going to be able to, where everybody's going to be nice and sweet and wonderful every day. But what I think a solution is to let children know, just like one of the girls we're talking about, that when these situations happen, children want to be so independent. They're trying to pull away from mom and dad taking care of everything for them. So they do try to handle things on their own. The problem is this, is that we as adults in this world still tell children, be the better person, walk away, don't worry about it. They're going to get bored and tired of making fun of you, or we're going to handle it. Kids don't want either one of those things. What we have to do is start empowering peer-to-peer relationships, getting other students everywhere I travel across this world. Students say, I would much rather have another student stand up for me, whether it's face-to-face bullying or whether it's in the cyber world, much more than having another adult stand up for them. If we empower students to start realizing that the things that are happening start building empathy back in children again, children view way too many things in this world and they are becoming less empathetic every single day.
Guys, we will have to wrap it up there just temporarily for a couple of minutes, but do stay with us here on World Have Your Say. Welcome back to World Have Your Say. Great to have you with us. I'm Peter Dobby, in for Roz this week. We will tweet the links a little later about the various organisations we've been talking about. So if you're following us on Twitter, you will get those links to do with cyberbullying. We'll stay with that story for the next couple of minutes. We will go back to Beirut as well, I promise. I'm going to talk now to Peter Bar Branzeig in Oslo. He's done research into cyberbullying. Peter, this cyberbullying seems worse than ordinary bullying because it's got a cycle, which is even if you switch everything off, even if you're talking to your mum and dad, your fellow people in the playground, in the school, they're on the social media, so they know you're being bullied as well. How do we break that link?
Well, the cyberbullies, it's difficult to escape, of course, and we have seen that cyberbullying is not more frequent than bullying in the schoolyard or physical bullying. So physical bullying or bullying in real life is still more frequent.
And am I right in thinking that the people that are doing the bullying in cyberspace feel safer because they're not in a face-to-face situation?
That's true. The anonymous environment makes people more able to bully because they don't see the victim, they don't see the pain of the victim, so they also do this for fun, mostly. So 80 survey of teenagers in the US.
Peter, I'm going to have to stop you there, but I really do appreciate your input. We appreciate your insight here on World Have Your Say. Let's go back to the events in Beirut. You'll be well aware, of course, what's been going on in the Lebanese capital. Going to talk now to Leon, who's in Lebanon. He got in touch via Skype. Leon, what do you think's going on here?
I think it's just a few minutes ago, it turned out that they had an actual target. They had Intelligence Bureau Chief General Wissam al-Hassan, who was killed in the Ashrafieh blast. So it is apparently it is an attack with a specific target. Now, why would they want to kill an intelligence bureau chief? Is probably because they want to. It might be. I can't speculate, but maybe they want to cause instability like they did in 2005.
Okay, Leon, I'm going to stop you there, but thank you very much for your contribution to that debate, of course. The debate carries on once this programme is off air on the blog and on Facebook as well. Up next here on BBC World News, Nick Gowing is here with The Hub. From me, Peter Dobby, and everyone on the team here at Television Centre in London, thanks for watching. This programme is back at the usual time next week. Bye-bye.